What's going on YouTube? Florida Man Knives here, and today I'm going to be going over my top 5 user knives. Now, I will be doing my video a little bit differently than all of the others, and we'll get into that, but first off, I just wanted to note that if you are like me and are subscribed to a lot of the knife channels out there, you will have been seeing this open tag going around, or videos, where channels will be tagging other channels on their top 5 user knives. And it's been really cool to see just all the knives that different people gravitate towards, especially knives that they're actually going to use, not safe queens. Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of knives that I actually carry quite a bit, but I still am pretty careful with, so they're not going to make this list. Additionally, this list will be limited to folding pocket knives, and as I stated, I'm going to be making mine a little bit differently. So I will start out with the top 5 knives that are used right now, currently. That is, I'm sure, what a lot of people would be looking for in this video. But I'm also going to be going over what my top 5 user knives would have been 3 years ago, as well as about 5 or 6 years ago. And because of that, I'm actually going to be featuring some knives that have never been seen before on the channel. So to those of you that are subscribed, that may or may not be exciting for you, but regardless, I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below on your top 5 user knives. And I'm going to go ahead and get started right now. So kicking it off, I'm going to go with, I wanted to note, I am a Spyderco fanboy, so naturally there will be a fair amount of those. And this is going to be the first one at number 5 on my current users in today's life. This is, of course, the Spyderco Delica. This just so happens to be the teal variant because teal is my favorite color. I do have a deep carry MXG gear pocket clip on here, but this is the knife that I'm going to grab anytime I'm going to be going anywhere where I might be somewhat worried about whipping a knife out and having a reaction. A great example of that is actually birthday parties. If anybody needs to open packages, this is going to be the knife that I bring. And I can tell you what, people have used this knife to open different birthday gifts that they have received or their kids have received. But again, whipping this out is not going to be anything too scary. And of course, it's extremely lightweight, VG10 steel, so I can definitely sharpen up the edge when needed. Just a great knife overall, for sure. My next one on the list, I guess coming in at number 4, which is kind of hard to believe because it's probably my most carried knife right now, and that is going to be the Spyderco Swish Bowie. This is, of course, the Knife Joy exclusive in Bowler M390. I love the anodized scales on this, and you can see starting to get a couple of scratches on it for sure. But again, this is probably my most carried knife currently on a day-to-day basis. Not too heavy, especially for it being a full titanium frame lock. And I'll be honest with you, I had planned on making this knife a user to begin with, and then I actually dropped my American flag paramilitary 2 on it to create that scratch. And from that moment forward, I was like, well, this is definitely a user, and so therefore I really am not concerned if it's going to be scratched up. And this is the knife that I'm just going to be throwing in my pocket on a day-to-day basis, just for general tasks that I'll be expecting to need a knife for, opening boxes and cutting zip ties, simple things like that. My next one on the list, coming in at number 3, is what I would consider to be my budget knife, or my beater knife, if you will. This is, of course, the Essia Vista. This is a Knifeworks exclusive, Knifeworks exclusive, excuse me. And yeah, just, $28, $30 after tax, basically. This is the AUS 8 variant. You can get it in D2 steel, I know. Honestly, you can't go wrong with an Essia Vista in general for the price. It's phenomenal. Again, this is my beater knife, if you will. So if I'm going to be doing any tasks where I really, don't want to have to worry about my knife at all, about dinging up the edge, just anything, yard work, things like that, especially, this is the knife that's going in my pocket. It actually carries a lot slimmer than it would appear. It's relatively lightweight for the size. You'll notice that I actually do have a tip down carry on this knife. This is the only knife that I regularly use that has a tip down carry, and the reason I have it set up that way is because if you were to reverse it over, number 1, it would sit higher up in the pocket, and number 2, the pocket clip would sit entirely on the lock bar right there. That's where you can see it actually currently does rest on the other side. So I did want to note that in case you're not too familiar with these knives, but overall just fantastic. Have zero complaints about it really other than that. And just again, for the price, you can't beat it. A knife that I'm really never going to be worried about breaking or losing. And number 2 on my list is going to be my Spyderco Siren. This is the knife that I carry every single weekend now. You know, when I'm out in the boat, fishing, at the beach, etc. In the water, which is pretty much every weekend if I can help it. This is the knife that's going in my pocket. I have done a few, cool things with this knife, fishing related of course, but I've also actually saved a bird's life by cutting off some fishing line that it was entangled in, which was pretty cool with this. Again, a knife that I really don't have to worry about, LC200N. It's a virtually rust-proof steel, fantastic for EDC purposes. The ergonomics on this are just phenomenal, very fantastic for my extra large hands, and yeah, just a great knife. A little bit pricey for sure, perhaps for some people, just like the Swish Bowie especially, that's very pricey for a user knife. But being honest here, this is the reason I bought this knife, and that one as well, the Swish Bowie, was to use them. And again, this goes in my pocket every weekend. I have cut through several feet of rope on this thing, anchor line that is, and other tasks as well, and it is just ridiculously good. I could talk about this knife for a very long time. And moving on to my number 1 knife, that is honestly my number 1 user knife of all time, excuse me. My number 1 favorite knife of all time. If you watch my channel, you will know that. That is, of course, the Spyderco Dragonfly 2 Salt. This one I have not cleaned the blade up. It's funny, this is a user video and I keep my knives pretty cleaned up, and actually recently cleaned off most of the blades. So this is the only one that really is looking a little bit dirty. It's just primarily tape residue there. But anyways, again, I don't have to worry about this knife rusting at all, which is extremely important to me. I'm always around the salt water. And H1 steel, yeah, it's not going to hold its edge very long, relatively speaking, but because of that, it's easy to sharpen, which I really appreciate. It's a relatively tough edge as well. I'm not worried about this breaking at all. I definitely have put some nicks into the edge, but it doesn't chip it out really. It more just kind of rolls it. Love the weight on the Dragonfly 2 in general. It's just a great user. I've had a few of them. This just so happens to be the one that will always be my number 1 most used knife. So there's that. And as I stated earlier in the video, I'm going to go ahead and now move on to what would have been my top 5 knives used 3 years ago. Now, I'm not really going to be doing this in reverse order, just because frankly, this one right here would have been my number 1 still, and I was just talking about it, so there you have it. The Dragonfly 2, still 3 years ago, would have been my number 1 most used. And continuing on with the Spyderco theme, it would have definitely been the Manix 2 lightweight at that point as well. This is just such a fantastic EDC knife. The size that you get for such a lightweight, of course this is the lightweight variant. I did want to note I have a brand new lynch clip on here, so that is why you'll see that it shows no wear. I have gone through several pocket clips on this. The only complaint I have, I guess, would be that the pocket clip does snag on things, and I have snapped them off before or bent them. The pocket clip that I had on here last, and still do have, and is fully functional. Of course it comes black, but it is completely silver at this point. Manix 2 lightweight, I could talk about this knife so much. It's ultra fidgety. Because of that, I just got so used to pulling it out of the pocket, quickly deploying it, and using it for virtually anything and everything. So Manix 2 lightweight for sure will always be a great user. It's a knife that I honestly need to carry more. I just frankly need to touch this edge up. It's kind of dull, and that's the reason I have not been carrying this knife too much recently. Sticking with the Spyderco theme, I already talked about the Delica, and that would have been probably number 3 or number 4. I could have gone either way with the Spyderco Meerkat. Honestly, I would say the Spyderco Meerkat I probably carried more, and honestly up until the pandemic would have been in my top 5 user knives for sure, because this is the knife that I carry to work quite a bit, and actually use quite a bit just for general tasks, opening up boxes, really simple things. And you can see with this Vitoku 2 blade, it definitely has shown a little bit of corrosion and wear, but super minimal, super low profile in the pocket. Again, this is the knife that I carry to the office quite a bit, but I have been working from home with the current world situation. And I mentioned the Delica already, and the last one in that list. And this is going to be a new one that is, never before seen on the channel, a knife that I've had for a very long time, and that is going to be the GT Knives Police Auto ATS 34. This is again, a very old knife, but a knife that I did EDC quite a bit on a regular basis. Honestly, I still would today, but because I used it so much and also fidgeted with it so much, I ended up loosening up the spring, and let's see if you can kind of see there, it starts to hang out a little bit, but you can see the tension that has kind of been released out. So I have noticed this snagging on things before, but overall a fantastic knife, and yeah, really no complaints on this one whatsoever apart from the spring loosening up. Just one of my all-time favorite knives. I'll definitely be doing some videos on this. You can see it's got aluminum scales as well as the aluminum pocket clip, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave that in this list because bumping back now to about 5 or 6 years ago, of course that teal Delica was not released at that point, nor was the Sprint Run. But these three knives were definitely still in that list. I do want to say I used to be a much bigger fan of automatics than I am, as well as OTFs. That passion has kind of been diverted towards ballast longs, I've noticed. But, with my love of automatics, I did actually have a Boker Kalashnikov, which definitely would have made this list. Honestly, I carried that knife quite a bit. Would have made the list from 3 years ago, had I not sold it pretty much right before that time. But just a great user knife, a knife that I beat on and abused really, but for the price you can't beat it, just like the SE of Vista. And next out is going to be another knife that has yet to be featured on the channel, a knife that I should have cleaned up a little bit but never really use or carry anymore, and that is this meyerko Speedster. You can see a Blackie Collins design right here. And honestly, this is a knife that, besides the Dragonfly 2, is probably my most used knife of all time. Just as far as longevity and actually using this, back before I had more money to spend on knives. This is a knife that was in my pocket every single day, Aus-8 steel. This was my uncle's before me. It came with a molded FRN plastic clip that I broke off, and then took a clip off of another knife and a different, I think this is actually the screw from the molded clip, because it still had you could still take it off. It was a removable molded clip, if that makes sense. But yeah, put that in, actually put a bunch of glue in there too. And yeah, carried it for several years after that. Additionally, this knife right here, years ago when I was going through cheap can openers on a regular basis, I actually ended up using this knife as a can opener for many, many, many different cans for about 2 different months, a month at a time. And, I just got fed up with breaking can openers and didn't buy one. It's kind of funny using a knife. Looking back, it's ridiculous. But that would have made the top 5. And then pushing back even further, before I did acquire the Spyderco Dragonfly 2 Salt, just wanted to throw this in here, a little truck stop knife that was in my tackle box before, again, that I acquired the Dragonfly 2 Salt. You can see this still has some fish blood corrosion from probably 10-15 years ago on it, honestly, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because I do still have it, and wolves are my favorite animal, and I will probably be doing a quick video on this at some point in the future. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this out now. If you've made it this far into the video, please let me know. I would definitely be really curious to hear. If you did make it this far, what are your thoughts on some of the knives that I showed that I used to carry on a regular basis, 5-6 years ago, around that. But, as always, and as I stated in the very beginning of the video, I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments below about your top 5 user knives. And also would love to hear what you have to say about my top 5 user knives. And again, the Spyderco Dragonfly 2 Salt definitely will always top the list for me. What is your number 1? Would love to hear it. Thanks for watching. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.